Houston, can you hear me? Hope so, because I know today is a holiday. Many of us may be off work, but we're live here on Life, Business, and Money, and the phone lines are open. So if you want to talk about life, if you want to talk about your business, if you want to talk about financial success, if you have a question on all of the above, call in now. 713-STEVEN-K is the number to dial. That's 713-783-8365. We'll be glad to talk to you about the issues that are important in your life, your business, your money. Now, I know my show's not a political talk show. However, today is Martin Luther King Day. And as much as I don't want to get into politics or controversial subjects at the same time, we do take this day to honor a great man in American history. And, you know, I'm very torn between taking a moment to make a special note to comment on that day and go down a path of this political controversy that is what racism was and what racism has become. So I'm not going to really get into that subject. I just do want to say that, you know, Martin Luther King did a lot of great things for equality in America today. We had a recent guest on this show. His name was Woody Campbell, and he wrote a book called Fade to Black that talks about where black Americans are today and what they really need to do to rediscover their culture and their heritage, to really pinpoint their identity. And if you missed that show, that would probably be a great guest to have on a day like today. But you can go back to the archives at StephenKLive.com and listen to that program. Just look for Woody Campbell. Go to the archives page and type in Woody on the search bar, and it'll pull up that show. And you can hear some of his views on the status of black America today. Now, I will say this. If we do want equality, then I think it has to start with each one of us individually. I'll give you a very simplified example. I was at the movie theater, well, a couple of times over this weekend. I see a lot of movies. If you listen to this show a lot, you hear me comment them on all the time. But I went down to the Edwards Marquee on I-10 in Silver, and was standing in line at the concessions. We had already gotten our seats. I came back out, and there were some people in front of me. And one of the people turned around and looked at me, and he kind of looked at me a little cross. And I knew at that moment I had a bit of a choice. I could give him the same response back and maybe create some tension, or I could try to alleviate tension. Now, I don't know why he looked at me that way. I don't even know if it was me taking his facial expression the wrong way. All I know is that I had a choice at that moment on how I was going to react. I simply smiled at him, and the next thing I knew, he smiled back. And then, you know, sort of gave me that nice polite nod and turned around and went back to talking to his friends. Now, I'm not saying a smile will cure every cultural problem that this country has. I'm not one of those tree-loving peaceniks that that think that, you know, oh, smile and love everyone and we'll have world peace. That's not the case. But I think the way we interact and react with one another can certainly start to change the way our culture actually accepts people from all walks of life. So that is my sole point on where our country needs to be as far as cultural equality. And that's all I'm going to spend time on this today, because we've got a great show lined up for you. And there's really, I think, things that we ought to discuss that can really help us in our businesses to achieve true success, because success is something that we all have access to in this great country of America. If you do have any comments, though, I would love to take them. Call in 713-783-8365. That's 713-STEVENK. Now, you're listening to Life, Business, and Money, and today we're going to be talking about success in a challenging market. And I I think that the first thing that we need to do, especially when the market gets tough, the first thing that we need to do anytime something gets tough is look at what we're doing within our businesses, or more importantly, what we've stopped doing in our businesses. I play a couple of different sports. One is billiards, and the other one is hockey. Those are my two main sports of choice. And I can tell you that this rule applies to either one equally. When I'm playing pool, whether it's on my team or in a singles match, I notice that when my game starts to get off, when I'm starting not to shoot just the way I like to, starting not to hit the balls the way I think I am capable of, I start looking at everything I learned from the beginning of, I can't call it a career in pool, but from the beginning of my training in pool from many years ago. And I'll tell you, I got taught by a great pool player. His name was Lou Butera. And I had been playing pool for a number of years when he came over and sat me down and said, I'm going to teach you a few things about the game. And the first thing that he did was he cleared the entire table. He put one ball at the center dot, well, at the rack dot, top of the rack dot at the center of the table, and he put the cue ball about a foot in front of it in a straight line toward the pocket. And he said, shoot that ball. And I kind of looked at him, but you know, he was a fantastic pool player, 1973 world champion. I certainly wasn't going to question his methods, at least at that moment. So I got down and I shot the shot, and I made it. Of course, it was a straight-in shot, easy as pie. And then he picked up the ball out of the pocket, he put it back on the dot, put the cue ball back where it was, a foot away from it, and he said, shoot it again. And so I shot it again. And then he started teaching me about my stance. And the stance in pool actually starts from your back leg. You kind of take a step back from the shot, you look at your entire line, and you step up toward the shot, making sure that your feet are in a straight line, much like golf. Your feet are in a straight line, and then you bend down toward the shot and have your cue in that same line that goes parallel above the toes of your feet. And he taught me how to stand. It was the most basic element of the game possible. And then once he saw that I got the stance that he was trying to teach me, which was a different stance than what I had been playing with for a number of years, he put the ball back on the spot, put the cue ball back in front of it, and said, shoot it again, and do that same motion again and again and again, and keep shooting that shot. And I shot the shot, made sure I did the stance he taught me, put the ball back up, put the cue ball back up, did the stance he taught me, shot it again, and he said, okay, do that until I come back. And he walked away from the table, and he didn't come back for about an hour and a half. And what he was teaching me was the most basic elements of the game. And any time that my pool game is off, I always go back to that lesson, and I start looking at what am I doing in my game, in my stance, in my stroke, that is different than what I actually learned. I go back to the basics. You know, and it's the same thing in hockey. You always have to practice the basic. It's the same thing in any sport, and it's the same thing in our businesses. Whenever you start to see something in your business go wrong, you have to go back to the basics. Now, my guest today, who is patiently waiting for me to introduce him, wrote an article for our newsletter called What It Takes to Succeed in a Challenging Market, which is the topic of today's program. And he quotes a very great teacher, a great coach, actually, in sports, who had the same ideal practice. And my guest today is Steve Levine. He is president and CEO of Steve Levine Real Estate Media. He publishes Real Estate Executive and Builder Architect magazines here in the Houston area, and he hosts his own radio talk show, pretty new show, that I am very proud to be the producer of, called Houston Real Estate Today, which airs Fridays at 1 o'clock, and if you want more information on that program, you can find it at HoustonRealEstateToday.com. But Steve Levine quotes the same thing in this article from a great man in sports, and It's all about going back to the basics, which can help you ensure that you're doing the right thing to win.
Absolutely. The man in question, the coach, is Vince Lombardi, one-time head football coach of the Green Bay Packers, who, when asked what he attributed his winning seasons to, said, stick with the basics. Always go back to the basics. And I find through my career that's advice that's applicable in the business world as it is on any playing field. And we have a set of basics to win by too. You know, Vince used to start out his training camps each season with, gentlemen, this is the football and that's the field.
It doesn't get more basic than that.
Really didn't care whether you were a superstar in high school or a superstar in college or you played pro ball for many years. You start right with the basics. You run the same basic plays and you practice the same basic moves that got you on the gridiron in the first place. So sometimes we lose sight of what those basics are, particularly as high tech as our world and business have been getting, and we lose sight of what the basics are that really got us off the ground with our businesses.
In fact, sports of any kind is a great example and kind of a teacher for the practices and disciplines that we need to have throughout our entire lives. One of the best things you can do for your children is get them involved in some sort of sporting activity, whether it's martial arts or football, basketball, baseball. My favorite's hockey. I'm voting for hockey. Any of those things. Get them involved because it teaches us the disciplines of having dedication, having determination, never giving up even when the odds are down, and going through the same motions over and over again, motions that have actually had a proven track record, and our businesses are no different. It's why those guys on the football field run the same drills day in and day out in between games. It's why the guys on the hockey field run the same drills in and out, day in and day out, on every day that's not a game. They do it 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and my pool coach used to tell me, anybody who practices something 8 hours a day will become a master at it. Business is no different. If you practice your business and you stick to the basics, you will see success over time.
Absolutely. We've got some main basics. I think in a challenging market we lose sight of the first and most important one. It's about attitude. You know, people who succeed expect to succeed. People who win expect to win. There's no doubt in their mind. Any doubt spreads like cancer. Think you can, think you can. Either way, you're right. And turning around a business, starting a business in a challenging time, starting a business in a challenging economy, takes the right attitude. That winning attitude is. It might be difficult, but it's definitely possible, where the opposite of that is somebody says it might be possible, but it's too difficult, so why even start? So those who have the belief system and the support are ones going to be successful because they're going to look at their business from another perspective.
Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, self-trust is the first secret to success. You have to have that faith in yourself, that belief in yourself, that confidence and passion about what it is that you're doing. You have to expect that you are going to get to your destination. You are going to reach your goal. In fact, our web poll question today, which you can find at StephenKLive.com, is what is the most important part of achieving your goals? If you're in front of a computer listening to our live web stream at StephenKLive.com, go to the lower left-hand corner of the homepage and put in your vote now. I'd like to check the results, see if they change in a little bit. What is the most important part of achieving your goal? If you're not in front of a computer, call in. I would love to hear your comments about getting back to the basics of business and what you think it takes to be successful. 713-783-8365 is the number to call. That's 713-STEVENK. And like I opened the show, if you're out there and listening, we do want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on what it takes to succeed in a challenging market? 713-STEVEN-K is the number to dial. And Stephen, that's one of your 3 points. We've got about a minute before we go to break, but I do want to cover the 3 points very quickly. One is positive attitude, which I want to talk a little bit in more depth in the next segment. But real quick, what are the other 2?
Customer service, actually customer satisfaction, and daily marketing. Those are the 3 steps and like a three-legged stool, it will not stand with just two. It's got to be all three.
Okay, so those are the three basics. Positive attitude, you have to expect to succeed. Customer service, customer satisfaction. You've got to be doing the job that your customers expect. And daily marketing. You've got to get the word out about your business and be out there every day making sure people know that you exist. I would love to hear from anyone who found their business in a little bit of a lull and discovered that it was one of those three things that they could work on and fix that helped them pick the pace back up. If that sounds like something you've been through in your experience in business, call in 713-STEPHEN-K and we'll get to you in the next segment. We'll be back in 5 right here on Life, Business, and Money.